But a licensing deal is a situation where an AI developer comes to a stakeholder group or rights holder in order to make an agreement to access their content for training purposes. So all cards on the table, you discuss the term, you give access in exchange for a benefit that suits you. We're not seeing a lot of these deals in the context of the heritage sector, and even less in the context of ICH. However, there is an overlap because we're seeing some audiovisual content rights holders discussing those deals. They're not yet fully fleshed or widespread, even in the film music industry. And so there's definitely an overlap here between ICH and some of those licensing deals, but they are the exception. If you are yourself in a position to make such a deal, the advice would be to get independent commercial or legal advice before you agree to such an agreement, and consider partnering with other communities that have also valuable content and are aligned with you so that increase your bargaining power in making those negotiations. Always, and only give access for a limited period of time and for limited purposes. Do not agree to a one-time deal in perpetuity, because that would mean kissing goodbye to control, further remuneration, and other things that may be important to you. And ask for both financial and in-kind benefits in exchange for granting access to your content. Often the comment I get is that ICH communities, groups, or individuals or institutions don't feel as strong in their leveraging and the bargaining powers as others to have negotiate a fair price or a fair term. But think about the other in-kind benefits that can be really useful to you as an ICH bearer in making that transaction. And we'll see how the field is developing.
Sorry, we will kindly ask you to wrap up shortly.
Of course, perfect. So I'll finish on saying that I hope this really highlights how intangible cultural heritage and AI talk to each other. ICH is as important as AI is to ICH. We often think about what AI can do for ICH when really it flows both ways. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this really, really useful also recommendations on how we can operate in a more aware way. And let me now give the screen to our dear colleague from Kenya, Michael Onyango. It is our pleasure to host you here. And let me just say that Michael is also the founder of the biggest WhatsApp group for BM. And yes, we are happy to hear about your experiences with AI and ICH connection. The screen is yours.
Very much. Thank you, everyone. And it's great to be here on this call, on this webinar rather. So I will not have a presentation. And if you probably noticed, I've been shuffling a lot of paper because I've been taking notes from what people have been saying. And I really want to be as responsive as possible. And I want to bring in the voices of those who are ordinarily left out of these conversations. So first and foremost, why is this discussion extremely important? So if you look at the IP industry, if I may call it that, currently it is valued at $8 trillion. And ICH falls under that. And just to give you a breakdown of which geographies basically control or have the most amount of IPs registered. So first of all, it starts with Asia. Asia has about 67.8% of the patents that are registered worldwide. Then it goes to North America, which shockingly only has 16.6%. Europe then has 12%, Africa 2.4%, and then Oceania has 1%. So I'm using this as the basis and the context to drive what I want to say now. So I know we're all very excited about AI. We're all very excited about ChatGPT and all these new technologies and what they can do. But let's take a step back so I can contextualize how I want to bring in what these technologies are doing and where the opportunities truly lie, especially from those who are referred to as the forgotten bottom millions and the communities who really, really need ICH to be protected, not just amongst them, but also for their livelihoods. So first of all, typically the way that we have protected, or the way that we have normally and continue to engage with ICH, is either through museums. For example, the Smithsonian, which is in Washington, has about 200,000 visitors, that go there annually. If you go to the Great Wall of China, well, they have about 10 million visitors that visit there. If you go to Machu Picchu in Peru, there's 1.5 million visitors. If you go to Stonehenge in the UK, there's 1.5 million visitors a year. Aha. Now, this is where it becomes interesting and becomes very interesting. So I've just mentioned these famous world sites, which a lot of you may have been to and a lot of you know. But now let me come back to the continent of Africa and show you just how we have already disrupted what is going on in these places, not through Chat GPT, not through OpenAI that's there right now, but through technologies that have already informed what may be looked at, the older AI tools. For example, let's give you some numbers again. It's on my papers here. So I just mentioned different sites around the world, and I told you how many visitors they have. But guess what? Yemi Alade, who is a singer, has 14 million people on her YouTube. So she actually has more influence over all those sites combined. Tiva Savage, who's also another African influencer, has 14 million followers. I can go on and on and mention more. And then there's people like Bonang, South African, and who basically promotes ICH through Instagram and has got 3.5 million followers. So shift happened and the game moved long ago. So in as much as we may be very excited right now about OpenAI, we're excited about what we need to do, we need to look at data governance and everything else, but we're missing out that there's a lot that has already taken place and continues to take place. And guess what? So, and I'll say this very openly, as the rest of the world, some by design, keeps on leaving us out. When I say us out, I mean the African continent out in terms of data collection and everything else. It doesn't matter, because with you, whether or not we're there, things are moving and things have shifted drastically and will continue to change. So let's talk about the populations of these different geographies in the next 10 years. Africa is going to have 1.5 billion people. Asia is going to have 4.7 billion people. America is only going to have 400 million people. Europe, the whole continent, only have 750 million people. Oceania, the rest of it will have 4.1 million people. So no matter how much you manipulate, no matter how much you have governance rules and laws that is all about ensuring that you're trying to stay on top of the whole game through technology and everything else, it's failing and it'll never happen. Things have shifted so badly. So I was busy taking notes as my fellow colleagues were speaking and everything else, and I want to speak about a very important point for me in ICH, which I think we always undervalue, never look out, and always leave out, and which is common to every single person on this call. When you talk about ICH, to me, the most important component or part of ICH is our food. We all eat, and it is our food that actually makes us who we are. When we travel around the world, any location you are, you're probably always asking, where can I try the local cuisine? Because that's the way you engage with the ICH place. And it even becomes better when you eat it in their pots, in their cutlery, the way it is done, the way it is prepared. And that is what, to me, is most invaluable. But let me give you something I think is very important as always to put things in context. And again, I'm going to come back to Africa. And now I really want to talk about more about East Africa. As I'm doing this presentation, this webinar, I'm actually at the coast. And this whole week, we've been here speaking to various innovators, which happens once every year. And just to give you some numbers and some figures to contextualize this, The East African coast fishing industry is worth over $1 billion annually. But if you see the fishermen and the fisherfolk, you don't see that $1 billion. Between July and September, all the most priced yellow tuna move into and around the coast of East Africa because of the warm waters. But I'm happy to report that 2 days ago, as the coastal counties across here, we're currently working through our ambassador, who is based in Belgium, to use AI-based technology from drones to be able to map and know where the different swarms of fish are, but beyond that, to also take data collection so that the fisher folk can thereby be more informed in terms of how they now are able to benefit from their ICH, most importantly, economically, and put money into their pockets. We cannot speak about ICH without speaking about how is it that those communities that we're saying we want to protect or we want to ensure are having better lives, how are we getting money into their pockets? Globally, it's worth 280 billion. I just told you that the fish industry is worth just about 1 billion. The food industry is worth 280 billion, of which we import 78 billion different products annually into the country, into the continent. But if we have activities which are ICH-led on the tools that we already have, forget the ones you're talking about, already on the Instagrams, already on the YouTubes, already on the TikToks, and there's loads of people who are actually using that and who are doing it very well. There are communities who have adopted this and their livelihood has changed, but beyond their livelihoods changing, they're also able to preserve, to record, and to show that there's longevity for the ICHs are in those areas. So about, there's a lot that we are doing, which is always ignored. And guess what? We're happy because it's a very good thing, because then nobody sees us coming. Today, as I speak to you, as a country, and as Kenya, by the end of this evening, we would have done transactions worth $750 million using our phones. And I'm not talking about smartphones. This technology was developed by ourselves here. So in as much as the academics will continue to work on their papers, work on their research and everything, our biggest strength continues to be that a lot of our people, because they've been left out and are not able to get into those academic institutions, through the different workshops that we have for them, through the different institutions that we have for them. For example, I sit on the board of the Africa Blockchain Institute, and one of the things that we do is that we're ensuring that we have workshops across the continent for different cohorts of people, irrespective of their background, so that these technologies can become a part and parcel of our livelihoods. So let me wrap up by concluding and saying, yes, it is good to have the research. It is great to speak about what next, but there is so much value in what is already there, and that is already being driven by the AI machines, by the AI data, and we're making use of that. And thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Michael. It was really inspiring to think and leading us to think out of our usual box. And now let me turn to Monika Bota-Moisin, who is Ashoka Fellow and also